I'm Lily Madwhip, and I might have doomed us all. Hecate fumes with rage. Fume is an action word that means be really, really angry. I used that once while playing Scrabble with my parents. It was worth 9 points. But it's also a thing word, a noun, that means a smell. I think it's kind of appropriate that it's both words because Hecate's anger is like a smell kind of fume that's wafting off of her so thick that you can almost see the haze around her. I thought I'd seen her angry before, but I guess that time she was just mildly annoyed. That time she only wrinkled her forehead and made stabby eyes. This time, her entire face is scrunched up and her eyes are like Death Stars that shoot lasers made of fire and atomic bombs. She's gritting her teeth so hard I think they might just crack in her mouth, and her hands are balled up into fists. The knuckles on them are white. She's like a stinky, red-faced rage balloon ready to burst, but at the same time seems completely powerless, which probably just makes her angrier. The being, the angel in the black protective gear, stands in front of her, still holding his finger out, as if to say, "Hold up a minute there, lady." Hecate glares at it like she's thinking about lunging forward and biting it right off of his hand. I'm sure she would do it. I'm so relieved to see Hecate powerless for once, and yet I'm still torn up inside, and a bit outside too, come to think of it. I try to swallow, but there's a lump in my throat and I can't seem to make it go down. Maybe it's my tongue. I hear you can do that. So much has happened. Roger, my mom, Felix, that awful dungeon, Lisa Welch cutting me. I touched the wound on my face where she managed to slice me. If she'd been any closer with the knife, she might have left me with a scar like the one Ono has. Oh no. I'm so sorry, Ono. I tried. I just wasn't good enough. I'm never good enough. But Pasher is. Pasher came for me when everything else seemed lost. Just in time, my guardian angel. Whenever I've lost him, he's always found his way back to me. Now I was the one who was lost, and still he found me. My knees feel like jelly that you spread on bread and eat with peanut butter. Grape jelly. I like it when there's just enough peanut butter and jelly to cover the bread and soak into it a tiny bit. If it squishes out the sides, that's too much. I blink away a few tears. That's a neat trick, I tell the black-suited angel. He turns his head in my direction but says nothing, even though he's wearing that mask with goggles and I can see his face. Even though he's wearing that mask with goggles and I can't see his face, I can feel his eyes. You know when you're sitting there watching a rerun of Gilligan's Island on TV and then you get this prickly sensation down your neck and you look out the window that faces the backyard and there's a feral calico kitty on the windowsill and it's just staring at you like it thinks it can hypnotize you into bringing it food, which you gladly do anyway because you love kitties and wish that you had one, but every pet that you keep ends up dying mysteriously? Well, it feels like that. The cat part. Prickly. Pasher sees me looking at his buddy like I'm expecting him to respond. He speaks up for the silent angel. Duma's gift of silence is an invaluable asset here. He leans toward my ear. He has to focus, though, and can't respond to you. Despite her limitations, in this place Hecate is still quite dangerous. You cannot see the battle of wills that is being fought between them. I narrow my eyes. Oh, Duma. Of course it's Duma. I'll bet he's narrowing his eyes back at me, too. Duma, who tried to burst Meredith's heart in her chest in a hotel room last year. Meredith doesn't know that, though, which is probably why she's looking at all the angels with curiosity and interest, rather than peeing her pants in fear. I would half consider peeing my pants in fear if the angel who tried to crush my heart as a shadow showed up in the flesh. Especially if he showed up in a rubber suit like he didn't want to get anything on him. Peeing yourself is a defensive tactic. People are less likely to kidnap a kid with stinky, wet pants. Also, it can drive away less hungry animals. I know this because I was the less hungry animal once, and a feral calico kitty I saw on my sill one day while watching Skipper and Gilligan was the kid with stinky, wet pants. Except it peed on me rather than itself. That's an entirely different story, though. Why are you dressed all funny? I asked Pasher. I want to hug him again, but it would probably get too weird if I do it too much. Is that one of those radiation containment suits like the old guy wore in Back to the Future? Or are you afraid of me seeing what you really look like? Do you look like bugs under those masks? Pasher puts a hand on my shoulder. No, we do not look like insects. These suits hide our presence. The angel in the orange suit still has his arms out toward the angry crowd like he's trying to play an invisible piano. I didn't think one could twitch their fingers in a threatening manner, but the way he does it, even I feel nervous. He must really hate the piano. Hecate's eyes blink momentarily toward her followers. It's nothing more than a look, but even I can tell there's some sort of unspoken communication in that second's glance, and so does someone in the group. A man wearing the top of a wolf's head like some sort of gross hat suddenly roars and bursts through the rest of the crowd, knocking over a woman in a yellow dress that looks like a dandelion. His arms hang down to his knees and seem unusually swollen, like a weightlifter's, but they don't match the rest of his body. He starts swinging his crazy big arms in pinwheels and charges straight at the orange-suited angel. Orange Suit doesn't seem the least bit fazed by this. He flicks his right wrist and a huge stone spike erupts out of the ground in front of where the muscle-armed man is running. The angry man doesn't even have time to react. He just straight up impales himself on the spike, falling to his knees on it. I guess it's a stalagmite, because those are what you call spikes that come out of the ground. The man's wolf hat slides off of his head and falls to the ground next to him. Blood runs down the stalagmite and gets all over the hat and his knees. I flinch and look away immediately, having already witnessed somebody get run through with a pointy thing earlier. Meredith gasps and covers her mouth. The rest of the people in the crowd shriek, and someone in the back starts sobbing loudly. Oh, maybe it's the angry man's mother. I like to think that my mom's crying for me like that right now. You never think about it when someone dies violently, but they had a mother who spent years raising them and molding them to be somebody, and then someone in an orange rubber suit waves his hand and all those years are lost to a stalagmite through the chest. The orange suit angel cocks his head to look at the less angry, more dead man with the Hulk arm slumped onto the spike he made. He doesn't seem the least bit concerned about taking a life. I guess killing people is pretty normal for angels. They've wiped out entire cities before, after all. With another flick of the same wrist, the spike flattens back into the floor, leaving a dead body with a huge, bloody hole through it. Just like Ono. I look over to where her body lays with the spear still stuck through it. I want to run over and pull it out and hug her, but there's probably all sorts of inside stuff leaking out of her and it'd get all over me, and I just couldn't stomach that. Maybe we can take her with us. Pasher, we don't have time for this, barks the angel in orange. Pasher nods to his friend. I am aware, Abaddon. He squeezes my shoulder with his rubber glove. I wish I could see his eyes. I just want to see his eyes. We need to get you out of here, but first I must deal with Hecate, okay? What are you going to do to her? I ask. Pasher doesn't answer. He just ruffles my hair. It gets staticky because of his rubber gloves and sticks up straight on my head. Then he walks over to Hecate. She glares at him, but I notice her lip is kind of curling up in a smirk. Dumma stiffens his finger in response, and she ends up biting down on her lip. I know how much that can hurt. I do it all the time, especially when I'm eating gummy bears for some reason. Hecate, Pasher says loudly so everyone can hear. I am Pasher, Watcher of Arabeth, Steward of Cassiel, and Executor of the 7 Podestates. I speak on behalf of our Creator. Observing with me are Duma, the Vindicator, and Abaddon, the Destroyer. I can't help but think how badass their names are. I want a title like them, but if I became an angel, it'd probably be Lillian the Awkward. Hecate manages to move her lips just enough to spit at Pasher. I can see her hands fighting whatever power Dumma has over her, twisting to try to make some gesture or reach out or do something. Duma's gloved hand creaks as he tenses up and holds her back with just a finger. You have fallen far, Queen Hecate. I barely recognized your kingdom. It grieves me to see you like this, but your transgressions can no longer be tolerated. Pasher's voice cracks a bit. It sounds like it hurts him to say those words. Of course, he's never been one for punishment. Whenever I got in trouble at home, he'd comfort me. Once when my dad spanked me for drawing on the glass coffee table in the living room with a rock from the stream down in the woods, Pasher sang me a song about where the water goes when it reaches the ocean while I cried in my bedroom. Looking back, I should have used the washable marker instead, but I was only 6 at the time. Pasher sighs. Hecate, mother of witches, she who sits. He pauses. She who sat at the crossroads and bore witness to the gates of the 7th heaven. For your continued interface in the mortal plane, you are hereby sentenced to seek penitence from the darkness of the oubliette. What's going on? Meredith asks. I squeak because I didn't notice her sneak up next to me. She watches Pasher talk to Hecate and hugs her melted Barbie close to her. It makes me wish I had my doll of Pasher with me to hug, but I guess I got to hug the real thing, so that's pretty good actually. Angel stuff, I say. That lady with the crazy eyes is in trouble for hurting me and some other people. She's been kidnapping kids like us for years. They're gonna do something to her. I have no idea what, though. Oh. She squeezes her doll Nathaniel again, and together we watch Pasher say more stuff, but I don't hear most of it because I'm actually thinking about how long it's been since things felt normal. I've missed you, says Meredith quietly. I turn and half smile at her. I've missed you too. Except for the whole burning people to death thing. I regret that I asked Ono to go get Nathaniel from her. Meredith needs him for protection. Felix, the real Felix, is still out there somewhere in the world, and he wants revenge on her for his son's death. I guess it's good Ono brought Meredith as well, since she's got more experience burning things anyways, and she did an awesome job at burning Hecate, even if it didn't really work out as well as I'd planned. Nothing ever does. My plans stink. I'm like the Scooby-Doo gang, always coming up with plans and everything just falls apart. I actually already told you that I missed you, but it wasn't you I was telling it to. When that other girl showed up in my bedroom, she looked just like you. I thought I was dreaming. She pauses, looking around at the weird people like Hip Sauce with his bat wings. At the sight of him, she hugs her doll Nathaniel closer. This isn't a dream, right? This is really happening? That's a good question. Maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe I'm sitting in Happy Vale Sanitarium, rolling around in one of those jackets that zip up in the back in a room where every surface is a pillow. Mom and Dad might even be visiting me, sadly looking through a window at me as I roll around and mumble stuff about angels and maxitars. This is really happening. I say it just as much to convince myself as to reassure her. Why are angels wearing rubber suits? I throw my hands up. So many questions, oh my god. I'm not exactly sure what to tell her either. It's an angel thing. The suits make them stealthy. I guess so they could sneak up on Hecate. Oh. One nice thing about Meredith is she can tell when I've had enough follow-up questions. Pasher steps back from Hecate, wiping her spit off his goggles. I completely missed everything he was saying to her. I wonder how long Hecate's gotta look for penance and how many she has to collect. If she's doing it in the dark, they could be hard to find. Abaddon, he says to the orange suit. Send her to the pit. Gladly, Abaddon remarks. He moves away from the crowd of Hecate's followers, points at them once like don't even think about it, and then walks over to Hecate. He moves like someone with a lot of confidence, or anger, maybe both. It can be hard to tell the difference sometimes. I didn't used to think angels got angry, but in the past couple years I've learned that they kinda act like us a lot of the time, including lying and keeping secrets. Abaddon steps between Duma and Hecate, holds up a single hand, then clenches it into a fist with a squeak of his rubber glove. The ground under Hecate rumbles and fat iron bars shoot up in a circle around her with a heavy clang as they meet above her head. It looks like a big bird cage. By which I mean a bird cage that's big, not a cage for Big Bird. Although I guess Big Bird could fit in there, kinda hunched over. Big Bird's just a normal person in a suit anyways, according to Pasher. I thought he was a puppet they brought to life in the workshop. Honestly, Pasher ruined some things. Duma finally lowers his finger and Hecate gasps like she was underwater and finally came up for air. She clutches at her throat, racking her nails down her skin and leaving marks. Her eyes snap towards Abaddon. "You were fools to come here," she snarls, grabbing the bars like some sort of cartoon villain. Then her snarl turns into a big grin full of nasty yellow teeth. She turns and looks at me with her angry, stabby eyes. "I'll see you again soon, you little..." Abaddon swings his fist down like he's a carpenter with an invisible hammer, and the entire cage with Hecate in it collapses into the floor like an express elevator, kicking up a huge cloud of dust. Smash! Someone in the crowd of onlookers shrieks. Hipsaw starts coughing on the dust and tries to clear his throat. Oh, I wonder what she was gonna call me. I'm sure it wasn't nice.
All right. That was delightful, but we have to leave.
Duma says, turning and walking quickly over to Meredith and grabbing her by the arm. Now! Meredith looks up at him with confusion in her eyes, and the air around her starts to waver with heat. You don't want to scare or anger Meredith. I'm pretty sure Duma knows what she can do, but he doesn't seem the least bit worried about it. Pasher takes my hand gently. Let's get you home, Lily. Most of Hecate's people just stand there, tearing their hair out and wailing. A few are hugging pillars and smacking their heads against them, leaving bloody marks on the stone. One old man is writhing on the floor and clawing at the air next to where the dead guy with the weirdly huge arms is lying with some gross stuff squishing out from underneath him. Abaddon moves over to them and puts his hands up again in that threatening gesture. He's less menacing the more he wiggles his fingers, though. Suddenly, I remembered something important. Wait, I say,
We can't wait!
Duma snaps angrily. No, not angrily. He sounds scared. I tug on Pasher's hand. But there's another kid, a boy named Ambrose. He's here too. He doesn't belong here. He said he knows you, and there's some people I rescued from a dungeon and promised I'd come back for, and my brother.
Ambrose Vickers.
Pasher seems to let the name roll around in his mouth for a bit.
We don't have time to find him, I'm afraid.
He pulls my hand lightly, like he's trying to guide me away from hip sauce and my maxitar.
Maybe in time we can return, but not now. As for those others, they've been warped by Hecate and Lamia. To take them back to Earth with us would surely kill them. They're actually safer here now.
How can they be safer? I ask. The veil will collapse if it doesn't have someone with the ability to keep it together.
Pasher!
Duma shouts.
Bring her!
Pasher pulls again on my hand. He manages to continue to seem calm even though Duma is clearly starting to panic. I don't understand why they seem so scared, but if an angel like Duma seems frightened of something, I shouldn't question it. Oh God, but Roger knows where my Charizard is. We need to rescue Roger or I'm never finding that thing. Roger, I start to say.
Roger is safe here too.
Lily? Meredith calls. Come on! But my Charizard...
Lily, please, we need to go.
I am going. I'm just thinking while I go. I'm allowed to think. If you didn't think while you ran, you'd probably find yourself running into stuff or getting to the end of the run and having no idea where you were. Also, Pasher moves fast, but I got little legs and it takes twice as many steps to make one of his. I feel like I'm gonna trip. I try to tell him my legs aren't as long as his.
The Charizard is glued to the bottom of a shoebox in the back of your closet.
What? All this time? I look back. Abaddon is still standing by Hecate's followers, who have stopped their wailing and shouting. They're just standing there watching us quietly. 2 of them step away from each other, leaving a gap in between them. Through it, I see a familiar face with a long scar running from her ear to her mouth, just like one Lisa Welch almost gave me. She raises a hand as if to wave goodbye. It can't be Ono. My mind is playing tricks on me. It must be because I forgot to ask to take her with us. I glance over at where she lay in a pool of her own blood with a spear shoved through her by Hecate. The spear's still there, but the blood and Ono are gone. Wait, what? My feet decide to go in the opposite direction as I trip over them, falling on my knees. Pasher drags me a little before pausing and pulling me back up to my feet. Ahead of us, Duma and Meredith are just about to go through the door when this sound bellows out from the corridor like the howling of 1,000 angry trumpets. Duma hesitates right in front of the arch, and then a massive wind blasts through from the hall. Meredith squeals and covers her head with her hands as she and Duma are knocked off their feet. It reminds me of this one time I went to the ocean, and while I was playing near the water, this giant wave came out of nowhere and bowled me over. They spin like tumbleweeds back toward us. Oh no, Pasher says. Why is his voice trembling? Abaddon yells, but he doesn't finish his thought. The door is gone. There's nothing but a wall there. Just smooth stones. It's not even like it shut or anything. It's like it's always been a wall. If I blinked, I'd probably have thought we got turned around or something. No door. I look back at the other side of the room where there is another exit to Hecate's chamber. It's across the room, past the crowd of her followers. Ono is standing there among them, watching me with her arms crossed. She's got a smile on her face that makes me nervous. It's not a friendly smile. It's a Lisa Welch standing next to Mr. Longbow, my old elementary school principal kind of smile. The one that says, "You're in trouble now, Lily." I let go of Pasher's hand and look at Ono in her mummy wrappings, standing quietly among Hecate's crew. Ono, what's going on? How are you still alive? Abaddon grabs my shoulder.
We'll get you out of here, child. Don't panic.
It seems to me you angels are the ones panicking. I snap. Abaddon lets go of my shoulder and stiffens. I hope I didn't offend him. After all, he just smashed a woman into the floor with one fist, and I kinda don't want to get smashed into the floor like that. I turn back to Ono. You can come with us. Pasher says the veil won't collapse with Hecate gone. Hecate's followers move back behind Ono. You really are clueless, aren't you? She says in a nasty voice. I feel a hand on my shoulder again. Abaddon pulls me back from Ono and steps between us. He raises his fist, the rubber glove creaking with how tightly he clenches it. I think he's going to impale Ono on a spike or drop a cage on her, but nothing happens. He looks at his fist, shakes it, and nothing happens. And then he turns to look back at Pasher. The wind howls again. It almost sounds like a person howling. I can't help but grit my teeth when I hear it. Ono smirks at us. Daddy's home, she says, baring her pointy teeth in a snarl. Daddy? I whispered to Abaddon. He doesn't respond. Lily. Pasher moves in front of me to stand next to Abaddon. The veil isn't Hecate's domain. Duma is here now too, holding Meredith's arm. He pushes her over next to me and stands beside Pasher and Abaddon. All 3 angels form a wall between us and Ono.
It's Samiel's,
says Duma. Samiel. I shiver at the mention of his name. Of course the veil belongs to him. A place out of time. He told me that himself when I met him last year. I had just gotten Felix's totem, giving me 4 in all. And Samiel pulled me out of reality like it was nothing. He tried to trick me into changing the past for some reason, and then took one of the totems as a toll for allowing me to return home. He never touched me, but I had nightmares for months after meeting him.
Why didn't I realize the veil belonged to him? But then all this crazy business with Hecate. Why did she act like she was... Oh God, I whisper. This was never about me. I look at Pasher. This was about getting you to come save me. Ono's mouth curls up into a nasty smile. It all makes awful sense to me at last. Bring me into the veil, torture me for the amusement of Hecate, get me to think I'm there to fight Hecate, bring Lisa Welch, make the angels have to come get me themselves. And I played right along, even asking Ono to bring me Nathaniel. Instead, she brought Meredith, twice as much bait. Or 3 times as much if you count Lisa. Personally, I'd have been okay if they left her. Someone in the back of the crowd starts clapping. Just one person, clapping slowly. No one else claps with them. I feel kind of bad for whoever it is, but at the same time, it's not really an appropriate time to start clapping. The clapping stops, and then a pair of hands appear on Ono's shoulders and a hush falls over everyone in the room. Samiel appears from out of the darkness directly behind Ono, like there was a shadow he was standing in, but there wasn't. He was simply not there a moment ago, and now he is. He smiles at us, looking exactly like he did a year ago and every day and night in my nightmares since then. Everything he's wearing is white. It really stands out compared to the rest of the room. All of Hecate's followers are grimy and gray or yellowish or just kind of a gross green color. Samuel looks like he just got run through a car wash. He'd probably sparkle if he were outside in the sun. The angels cluster tighter together in their rubber suits. Meredith peeks out from around Duma's butt. Oh, who's he? Samuel, I say. Is that good or bad? Bad, says Abaddon. It's so good to see you, brothers. Samuel says softly. He rubs his chin. Maybe he's used to having a beard, I don't know. Why not take those ridiculous suits off and let's do things face to face? Abaddon brings his hands up threateningly. Foul father of demons, I'll... Samuel shakes his head. No. That's all he says. Just no. Immediately, Abaddon's wrist bent backwards with a loud snap. He grunts in pain but doesn't cry out. Me? I'd probably have screamed if my wrists bent that way. Abaddon's a tough guy, I guess. Still, his wrists are bent nearly half off, and he brings his arms back quickly, hugging them to his chest. Pasher steps forward. I hold my breath. Please don't kill Pasher. Brother, this was an unnecessary plot. Did you think I didn't foresee your trap before you set it? Samuel pets Ono's hair like a loving father. And yet you came anyway. Was I not supposed to detect you in those suits? I am he of 1,000,000 eyes, little brother. Why, I could smell Duma the moment you all set foot within these walls. Duma stiffens. Meredith sniffs the air and then looks at me and shrugs. I don't think she quite appreciates the predicament we're in. I mouth, "We're going to die," at her. She smiles back. No, Meredith, no. I said we're going to die. She nods. I can't believe we're seeing angels. She whispers. What is wrong with you, girl? Seriously. Samuel looks around the chamber. He sees the dead man with the giant arms and the grisly hole through his body and makes a face like my dad does when he's finally satisfied with one of his dirges he always writes. It's his not bad if I say so myself face. My dad writes a lot of dirges. They're not my cup of tea, but I don't drink tea, so even tea isn't my cup of tea. He points with both hands at the body, I think in part to mock Abaddon. Your work, little Abby? Abaddon doesn't say anything. And what did you do with my queen in a box? Samuel asks with amusement. He must be talking about Hecate. We put her in a smaller box, says Pasher matter-of-factly. Indeed. Samuel laughs.
It sounds like a human mixed with a hyena.
The oubliette? I'll bet she's clawing her way out of your bottomless pit as we speak. She's old, but she's spry. What do you want, Samuel?
Duma snaps. Samuel looks at him and licks his lips. I can see Duma tense up inside his suit. His whole body goes rigid like a statue. Maybe he thinks Samuel is going to eat him right in front of us. I wonder if he could do anything about it if Samuel tried.
I just want to know why 3 of my brothers came to visit and didn't even bother to let me know in advance that they were coming.
He shrugs and rolls his eyes with that same sarcastic smile. Abaddon is standing beside me with his hands hanging off the ends of his arms like wet noodles. He's been staring at them for a minute or two now, ever since Pasher moved ahead of him. I can hear him breathing inside his suit. He seems to be breathing kind of raggedly. He takes a deep breath and then tenses up and both hands snap back into normal place with a loud crack from each. Ooh. Meredith is watching with me and we both flinch at the sight of it.
Holy shit.
Meredith doesn't finish.
You insult us with your false pride,
Pasher says. His voice sounds irritated, like when he's had to explain something to me for the 10th or umpteenth time. I'm not sure what number umpteen comes after, but it's clearly in the teens.
You set Hecate on my charge in order to bring me here. What is it you want with me? No more games.
Samuel lets go of Ono and brushes past her. She smiles up at him like advertisements want you to believe babies do in the presence of Santa. They don't, okay? They don't. Any baby you see smiling at Santa Claus is either a robot baby or blind. Babies cry when they see Santa. He's big and hairy and red-faced and really kind of scary. I don't know why they keep inviting him to the local mall every year. Even he seems to not want to be there half the time. Admiration, that's the word I'm looking for. She admires him. I regret shedding a single tear for you, Ono. Pasher steps toward his brother. He unfastens something on the side of his neck, and there's a hiss of air from the hose attached to the tank at his side. It quiets down after a second, and he reaches up and pulls the gas mask off. All I can see is the side of his head, a bit of a pale cheekbone, and hair so white it matches Samuel's. I want him to turn around so I can see his face, but he doesn't.
It's nice to see your face, brother.
Samuel grins. It actually looks like a sincere smile, not one of his dangerous smiles where you get the feeling he's thinking about taking your face off with his teeth. Then he looks at me and winks. I scowl back.
You want to know why I brought you here? It's simple. You won't speak to me otherwise. This seemed to be the only way to have an audience. You've put multiple lives in danger. You exaggerate. I put one in danger.
He holds up his finger, wiggles it at Duma tauntingly, and then points it at me.
And her? She's a speck.
He spits when he says it.
You just find another in a heartbeat.
Oh. Pasher shakes his head. I still don't get a view of his face. It's agonizing to be so close and not be able to see it.
Why the games? Why Hecate?
Samuel looks back at Ono. She beams at him with her crooked smile.
Why? Because I was bored. At worst, I thought I'd be mopping little Lily off the stones while you wept yet for another lost charge. At best, I'd have twisted your precious knife into my own personal sword that cuts the veil. Imagine having her at my beck and call. I'd be able to tear down the walls of all the heavens.
Oh my gosh, Meredith whispers, tugging at my sleeve. Are they talking about you? I'm glad you're keeping up with all this, I mutter. Duma looks back at us both. I expect him to shush us just like grown-ups always do when they're having an adult conversation and kids try to have one of their own. But he doesn't. He looks at Meredith, then at me, then at Meredith again. Finally, he puts a finger to the side of his head, pressing on his ear, and very slightly with his free hand points at Meredith. No, he's not pointing at Meredith. He's pointing at her doll. He's pointing at Nathaniel, and then he nods at me. I can see his eyes through the goggles. He's trying to tell me something. Well, I'm here now, Pasher's saying. What did you want to discuss? Samuel claps his hands happily. This is wonderful! I don't know how he's able to do it, but he's even scarier when he's genuinely happy. I guess it's like seeing a clown smile. You just know that if it's smiling, bad things are gonna happen. Meredith? I whisper twice as quietly as before. May I see Barbie? I swear I'll give it back. What? What are you going to do? She looks down at her doll, then narrows her eyes at me. I don't say anything more, I just stare at her. After a second of thought, she holds her doll out cautiously. Thank you. The moment I wrap my fingers around Nathaniel's plastic form, I feel my body temperature rise. It's like I'm sitting out in the sun on a warm day and there's no breeze. I almost immediately hear Nathaniel shouting inside my head. Lily, listen to me. Tear a hole. Samuel is looking over his shoulder at the group of nasties Hecate had left behind. I look down at Nathaniel. He's made of plastic and doesn't have any seams. Samuel keeps talking. Let's go somewhere more private. When did you last get to see my personal chambers? What? I think to Nathaniel. Tear a hole in you? There's silence. I look up. Samuel is staring at me. His eyes are bottomless black like the pit they put Hecate in. What do you think you're doing, you little flea? He snarls at me. What fleas do, I guess? I say. Fleeing? Pasher turns to look at me. I don't think to look back at him and finally get to see his face, though, because Nathaniel's screaming inside of my head. Tear a hole in the veil! So, I do. I think about the whole room ripping in half like pages of a book. I imagine one of those big, jagged cracks like an earthquake makes in the ground, and it's as simple as thinking about it. More so because I'm double charged from holding Nathaniel. The doll erupts into a fireball in my hand and the room splits with a roar, one half lurching away like a moving sidewalk and throwing almost everyone off their feet. When it's over, only the 4 angels remain standing, with a divide between Pasher and Samuel as long as 5 bathtubs. Big bathtubs. It's a large divide is what I'm saying, and inside it is the black void. Samuel roars from across the split. I blink, and within that instant, he's standing on our side, looming over me. His eyes are fire. His mouth is full of teeth. His fingers are scissor blades. Give me that toy! He reaches down for Nathaniel, but just as he does, Pasher grabs his shoulder and throws him back. He tumbles backward. I only have a second to think, and I use to give a nonsense shout and think of the tear again. I clench Nathaniel and make a motion like I can just rip the world in two just with my hands. The doll flares up, and this time the entire room in front of us rips with a scream, cutting across Samuel himself and all of his followers on the other side of the crack. It looks like someone tearing a movie screen in half. Samuel's top half wings toward the ceiling while his bottom half goes down towards the floor, but neither half bleeds. Nor do any of the people cut in half across the room. It's more like just a flat painting of them being torn apart. Samuel flails his arms and howls with rage. Duma grabs Meredith while I feel hands under my armpits and realize I'm being hoisted up by Abaddon. What was that? Meredith starts, and then the 3 angels in their rubber suits jump into the void while all I can hear is the sound of Samuel above us screaming in fury and my own screaming as I fall once again through the empty black of nothingness. This time with 2 strong hands gripping me tight and a voice in my head saying, "Hold on, Lily, and don't look back." I don't know which way is back to not look, so I close my eyes instead. I hear Samuel. He's coming for us. And now he's pissed.
Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching tonight's video. or watching tonight, or listening to tonight's podcast, because it's also a podcast on Spotify, or on Apple, or on Google, or anywhere else you can listen to the podcast. So, as you know, just about every single convention this year has been canceled. However, there is something fun that I think all of you might like, and that's the HorrorConVR. HorrorConVR is a project that I've picked up with, as well as a group of my friends, to help become a reality. HorrorConVR is going to be hosted in VRChat, and you don't need a headset or virtual reality to be able to play it. You just need a computer or laptop. So if you guys are interested in finding out more, you can head over to HorrorConVR.com, or you can check us out on Twitter at horror_VR. And lastly, as always, I want to remind you guys, if you ever want to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. And I really appreciate any time you guys can support the show, because honestly, I love you guys. You're all awesome. So, a very special thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Haha Saha, Ken Lenda Higuchi, Mazakine, Champinski, The Red Oak Shield Virus, G. Weevil 3, Diana Kraus, Stephen Van Huss, Chance Burnett, Tristan Pelton, Nico Cowell, The Ginger Bros, Last Blade Song, Caleb Dougal, Sky Harbor, The Homeless Bird 93, Bobby Karen, Liam Newman, Aaron Stormcrow, Barbara Maceo, Thomas Burgett, S-Man, Kiri the Sloth, Bad Honey, Someone You Love, Said the King 56, Shadow Morningstar, Mad Marstomp, Mr. Thud, Patrick Schoolmeister, Z. Kearley, Wolfie Nums, Rafael Rodriguez, WR Axis, Prozac and Pancakes, Mike Bullock, Acid System, Lauren, Brian Arse, and Rumble Fox. And also a huge thank you to everybody who's down there in the description down below. You guys, as always, are the real MVPs, and I appreciate you more than I can possibly say. So thank you guys, thank you all for listening, and sweet dreams.